Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're continuing our reading of the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, very happily so. We're nestled here at the foot of Govardhan Hill, and we're not going anywhere. And if you want to come join us, take planes, automobiles, buses, walk, camels, whatever way you can get here, get on down to the Bhaktivedanta Ashram. Prasadam is cooked by some empowered Bengali cook. Doesn't get any better than that. And we're just reading Bhagavatam to our heart's content, nobody to bug us, nowhere to go. Very happy. Please come or tune in wherever you may be. We're taking up at 4, what's the chapter number? 4:26. Thus, in order to give up her body, Sati's in the process of giving up her body because she doesn't want to keep it because it's connected to Daksa, her father, who committed an offense to her husband Shiva, who's a faultless person and a great Vaishnav. Thus, in order to give up her body, which had been so respectfully and affectionately seated on the lap of Lord Shiva, who is worshipped by great sages and saints, Sati, due to anger toward her father, began to meditate on the fiery air within the body. Purport. Lord Shiva is described herein as the best of all souls. Although Sati's body was born of Daksha, Lord Shiva used to adore her by sitting her on his lap. This is considered a great token of respect. Thus Sati's body was not ordinary, but still she decided to give it up because it was the source of unhappiness because of its connection with Daksha. This severe example set by Sati is to be followed. One should be extremely careful about associating with persons who are not respectful to the higher authorities. It is instructed, therefore, in the Vedic literature that one should always be free from the association of atheists and non-devotees and try to associate with devotees. For by association of a devotee, one can be elevated to the platform of self-realization. This injunction is stressed in many places in Srimad Bhagavatam. If one wants to be liberated from the clutches of material existence, then one has to associate with great souls. And if one wants to continue one's material existential life, one can associate with persons who are materialistic. The materialistic way of life is based on sex life. Thus, both becoming addicted to sex life and associating with persons who are addicted to sex life are condemned in the Vedic literature because such association will simply interfere with one's spiritual progress. However, association with great personalities, devotees who are great souls, will elevate one to the spiritual platform. Sati Devi decided to quit the body which she had obtained from Daksha's body, and she wanted to transfer herself to another body so that she might have completely uncontaminated association with Lord Shiva. Of course, it is understood that in her next life she would take birth as the daughter of the Himalayas, Parvati, and then she would again accept Lord Shiva as her husband. Sati and Lord Shiva are eternally related. Even after she changes her body, their relationship is never broken. Text number 27. Sati concentrated all her meditation on the holy lotus feet of her husband, Lord Shiva, who is the supreme spiritual master of all the world. And thus she became completely cleansed of all taints of sin and quit her body in a blazing fire by meditation on the fiery elements. Purport. Sati at once thought of the lotus feet of her husband, Lord Shiva, who is one of the 3 great personalities of Godhead in charge of the management of the material world, and simply by meditating on his lotus feet, she derived such great pleasure that she forgot everything in relationship with her body. This pleasure was certainly material because she gave up her body. This pleasure was certainly material because she gave up her body for another body that was also material. But by this example, we can appreciate the devotee's pleasure in concentrating his mind and attention on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, Vishnu or Krishna. There is such transcendental bliss in simply meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord that one can forget everything but the Lord's transcendental form. This is the perfection of yogic samadhi or ecstasy. In this verse it is stated that by such meditation she became free from all contamination. What was that contamination? The contamination was her concept of the body derived from Daksa, but she forgot that bodily relationship in trance. The purport is that when one becomes free from all bodily relationships within this material world and simply places himself in the position of an eternal servant of the Supreme Lord, it is to be understood that all the contamination of his material attachment has been burnt by the blazing fires of transcendental ecstasy. It is not necessary for one to manifest a blazing fire externally, for if one forgets all his bodily relationships within this material world and becomes situated in a spiritual identity, it is said that one has been freed from all material contamination by the blazing fire of yogic samadhi or ecstasy. That is the topmost perfection of yoga. If one keeps his bodily relationships within this material world and poses himself as a great yogi, he is not a bona fide yogi. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, it is stated, yet kirtanam yet smaranam, Bhagavatam 2.4.15. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, simply by remembering the lotus feet of Krishna, simply by offering prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is immediately freed from material contamination. And the bodily concept, by the blazing... Start over, sir. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, simply by remembering the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, simply by offering prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is immediately freed from material contamination, the material bodily concept, by the blazing fire of ecstasy. This effect takes place immediately without a second's delay. According to Sri Jiva Goswami, that Sati quit her body means that she gave up within her heart her relationship with Daksa. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also comments that since Sati is a superintendent deity of the external potency, when she quit her body, she did not get a spiritual body, but simply transferred from the body she had received from Daksa. Other commentators also say that she immediately transferred herself into the womb of Menaka, her future mother. She gave up the body she had received from Daksa and immediately transferred herself to another, better body, but that does not mean that she got a spiritual body. When Sati annihilated her body in anger, there was a tumultuous roar all over the universe. Why had Sati, the wife of the most respectable demigod, Lord Shiva, quit her body in such a manner? Purport. There was a tumultuous roaring all over the universe in the societies of the demigods of different planets because Sati was the daughter of Daksha, the greatest of all kings, and the wife of Lord Shiva, the greatest of all demigods. Why did she become so angry that she gave up her body? Since she was the daughter of a great personality and wife of a great personality, she had nothing to desire, but still she gave up her body in dissatisfaction. Certainly this was astonishing. One cannot attain complete satisfaction even if one is situated in the greatest material opulence. There was nothing Sati could not achieve, either from her relationship with her father or from her relationship with the greatest of the demigods. But still, for some reason, she was dissatisfied. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam explains that one has to achieve real satisfaction. But yayatma suprasidati, atma, the body, mind, and soul, all become completely satisfied only if one develops devotional service to the Absolute Truth. Savai pumsam parodharmo yato bhaktir adhoksaje. Adhoksaja means the Absolute Truth. If one can develop his unflinching love for the transcendental Supreme Personality of Godhead, that can give complete satisfaction. Otherwise, there is no possibility of satisfaction in the material world or anywhere else. 29. It was astonishing that Daksa, who was a Prajapati, the maintainer of all living entities, was so disrespectful to his own daughter, Sati, who was not only chaste, but was also a great soul, that she gave up her body because of his neglect. Purport. The word anatmya is significant. Anatmya means the life of the soul. So this word indicates that although Daksha appeared to be living, although he was a dead body, otherwise how could he neglect Sati, who was his own daughter? It was the duty of Daksha to look after the maintenance and comforts of all living entities because he was situated as a Prajapati, the governor of all living entities. Therefore, how is it that he neglected his own daughter, who was the most exalted and chaste woman, a great soul, and who therefore deserved the most respectful treatment from her father? The death of Sati, because of her being neglected by Daksha, her father, was most astonishing to all the great demigods of the universe. 30. Therefore Daksha, who is so hard-hearted that he is unworthy to be a Brahmana, will gain extensive ill fame because of his offenses to his daughter, because of not having prevented her death, and because of his great envy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Daksha is described here as most hard-hearted and therefore unqualified to be a Brahmana. Brahmadruk is described by some commentators to mean Brahmabandhu, or friend of the Brahmanas. A person who is born a Brahmin in a Brahmin family but has no Brahminical qualification is called a Brahmabandhu. Brahmanas are generally very soft-hearted and forbearing because they have the power to control the senses and the mind. Daksha, however, was not forbearing, for the simple reason that his son-in-law, Lord Shiva, did not stand up to show him the formality of respect. He became so angry and hard-hearted that he tolerated even the death of his dearest daughter. Sati tried her best to mitigate the misunderstanding between the son-in-law and the father-in-law by coming to her father's house, even without an invitation. And at that time Daksha should have received her, forgetting all past misunderstandings. But he was so hard-hearted that he was unworthy to be called an Aryan, or Brahmana. Thus his ill fame still continues. Daksha means expert, and he was given this name because of his ability to beget many hundreds and thousands of children. Persons who are too sexually inclined and materialistic become so hard-hearted because of a slight loss of prestige that they can tolerate even the death of their children. (31) While people were talking among themselves about the wonderful voluntary death of Sati, the attendants who came with her readied themselves to kill Daksha with their weapons. Purport. The attendants who came with Sati were meant to protect her from calamities, but since they were unable to protect their master's wife, they decided to die for her. And before dying, they wanted to kill Daksha. It is the duty of attendants to give protection to their master, and in case of failure, it is their duty to die. 32. They came forward forcibly, but Bhrigu Muni saw the danger, and offering oblations into the southern side of the sacrificial fire, immediately uttered mantric hymns from the Yajurveda, by which the destroyers of yajnic performances could be killed immediately. Here is one example of powerful hymns in the Vedas which, when chanted, could perform wonderful acts. In the present age of Kali, it is not possible to find expert mantra chanters. Therefore, all the sacrifices recommended in the Vedas are forbidden in this age. The only sacrifice recommended in this age is the chanting of the Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra, because in this age it is not possible to accumulate the needed funds for performing sacrifices, not to speak of finding expert brahmanas who can chant the mantras perfectly. When Bhrigu Muni offered oblations in the fire, immediately many thousands of demigods named Ribhu became manifested. All of them were powerful, having achieved strength from Soma, the moon. Purport. It is stated here that many thousands of demigods named Ribhus became manifested because of the oblations offered in the fire and the chanting of the hymns from the Yajurveda. Brahmanas like Bhrigu Muni were so powerful that they could create such powerful demigods simply by chanting the Vedic mantras. Vedic mantras are still available, but the chanters are not. By chanting the Vedic mantras or chanting the Gayatri or Rig mantra, one can attain the results he desires. In the present age of Kali, it is recommended by Lord Chaitanya that simply by chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa, one can attain all perfection. Text number 34. When the Ribhu demigods attacked the ghosts and guyakas with half-burned fuel from the yajna fire, all these attendants of Sati fled in different directions and disappeared. This was possible simply because of Brahma Teja, Brahminical power. Purport. The word Brahma Teja, word Brahma Tejasa, used in this verse is significant. In those days, Brahmanas were so powerful that simply by desiring and by chanting a Vedic mantra, they could accomplish very wonderful effects. But in the present age of degradation, there are no such Brahmanas. According to the Panchak system, in this age, the entire population is supposed to consist of Shudras because the Brahminical culture has been lost. But if anyone displays the signs of understanding Krishna consciousness, he should be accepted, according to the Vaishnava Smriti regulations, as a prospective Brahmana, and should be, I'm going to read that again because it's so important. But if anyone displays the signs of understanding Krishna consciousness, he should be accepted, according to Vaishnava Smriti regulations, as a prospective Brahmana, and should be given all facilities to achieve the highest perfection. That quote's in the, all the books that are about taking second initiation. The most magnanimous gift of Lord Chaitanya is that the highest perfection of life is available in this fallen age if one simply adopts the process of chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa, which is able to bring about the fulfillment of all activities and self-realization. I got to read that again. It's too nice. Try to stop me. The most magnanimous gift of Lord Chaitanya is that the highest perfection of life is available in this fallen age if one simply adopts the process of chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa, which is able to bring about the fulfillment of all activities in self-realization. Wait for it. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 4th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Sati Quits Her Body. Bravo! Sadhu, sadhu! Bravissimo! Who knows the next chapter? Fighting. Too much fighting and destruction. Stay tuned, everyone. Don't go anywhere. Chapter 5, Frustration of the Sacrifice of Daksa. Maitreya said, when Lord Shiva heard from Narada that Sati, his wife, was now dead because of Prajapati Daksha's insult to her, and that his soldiers had been driven away by the Ribhu demigods, he became greatly angry. Purport. Lord Shiva understood that Sati, being the youngest daughter of Daksha, could present the case of Lord Shiva's purity of purpose, and this would be able to mitigate the misunderstanding between Daksha and himself. But such a compromise was not attained, and Sati was deliberately insulted by her father by not being received properly when she visited his house without being invited. Sati herself could have killed her father, Daksha, because she is the personified material energy and has immense power to kill and create within this material universe. In the Brahma Samhita, her strength is described. She is capable of creating and dissolving many universes. But although she is so powerful, she acts under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as his shadow. It would not have been very difficult for Sati to punish her father, but she thought that since she was his daughter, it was not proper for her to kill him. Thus she decided to give up her own body, which she had obtained from his, and Daksha did not even check her. When Sati passed away, giving up her body, the news was conveyed by Narada to Lord Shiva. Narada always carries the news of such events because he knows their import. When Lord Shiva heard that his chaste wife Sati was dead, he naturally became exceedingly angry. He also understood that Bhrigu Muni had created the Ribudev demigods by uttering the mantras of the Yajurveda, and that these demigods had driven away all his soldiers who were present in the arena of sacrifice. Therefore he wanted to reply to this insult, and he decided to kill Daksha because he was the cause of the death of Sati. Two. Thus Lord Shiva, being extremely angry, pressed his lips with his teeth and immediately snatched from his head a strand of hair which blazed like electricity or fire. He stood up at once, laughing like a madman, and dashed the hair to the ground. A fearful black demon as high as the sky and as bright as 3 suns combined was thereby created, his teeth very fearful, and the hairs on his head like burning fire. He had thousands of arms equipped with various weapons, and he was garlanded with the heads of men. When that gigantic demon asked with folded hands, "What shall I do, my lord?" Lord Shiva, "What should I do, my lord?" Lord Shiva, who is known as Bhutanath, directly ordered, "Because you are born from my body, you are the chief of all my associates. Therefore, kill Daksha and his soldiers at the sacrifice." Here is the beginning of competition between Brahma Tejas and Shiva Tejas. Bhrigu Muni had created the Ribu demigods who had driven away the soldiers of Lord Shiva stationed in the arena by his Brahma Tejas, Brahminical strength. When Lord Shiva heard that his soldiers had been driven away, he created the tall black demon, Virabhadra, to retaliate. There is sometimes a competition between the mode of goodness and the mode of ignorance. That is the way of material existence. Even when one is situated in the mode of goodness, there is every possibility that his position will be mixed with or attacked by the modes of passion or ignorance. That is the law of material nature. Although pure goodness or Shuddha Sattva is the basic principle in the spiritual world, pure manifestation of goodness is not possible in this material world. Thus, the struggle for existence between different material qualities is always present. This quarrel between Lord Shiva and Bhrigu Muni, centering around Prajapati Daksha, is the practical example of such competition between the different qualitative modes of material nature. Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, that black person was the personified anger of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he was prepared to execute the orders of Lord Shiva. Thus, considering himself capable of coping with any power offered against him, he circumambulated Lord Shiva. Many other soldiers of Lord Shiva followed the fierce personality in a tumultuous uproar. He carried a great trident, fearful enough to kill even death, and on his legs he wore bangles, which seemed to roar. At that time, all the persons assembled in the sacrificial arena, the priests, the chief of the sacrificial performance, and the brahmanas and their wives, wondered where the darkness was coming from. Later, they could understand that it was a dust storm, and all of them were full of anxiety. Conjecturing on the origin of the storm, they said, "There is no wind blowing, and there are no cows passing. Nor is it possible that this dust storm could be raised by plunderers, because still there is the strong king Barhi who would punish them. Where is this dust storm blowing from? Is the dissolution of this planet now to occur? Purport. Specifically significant in this verse is Prajinabarha Jivati. The king of that part of the world was known as Barhi. And although he was old, he was still living, and he was a very strong ruler. Thus there was no possibility of thieves and plunderers invading. Indirectly, it is stated here that thieves, plunderers, rogues, and unwanted population can exist only in a state or kingdom where there is no strong ruler. When, in the name of justice, thieves are allowed liberty, the state and kingdom are disturbed by such plunderers and unwanted population. The dust storm created by the soldiers and assistants of Lord Shiva resembled the situation at the time of the dissolution of this world. When there is a need for the dissolution of the material creation, this function is conducted by Lord Shiva. Therefore, the situation now created by him resembled the dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. Prasuti, the wife of Daksa, along with other women assembled, became very anxious and said, "This danger has been created by Daksa because of the death of Sati, who, even though completely innocent, quit her body as her sisters looked on." Purport. Prasuti, being a soft-hearted woman, could immediately understand that the imminent danger approaching was due to the impious activity of hard-hearted Prajapati Daksha. He was so cruel that he would not save her youngest daughter, Sati, from the action of committing suicide in the presence of her sisters. Sati's mother could understand how much Sati had been pained by the insult of her father. She had been present along with the other daughters, and Daksha had purposely received all of them but her because she happened to be the wife of Lord Shiva. This consideration convinced the wife of Daksha of the danger which was now ahead, and thus she knew that Daksha must be prepared to die for his heinous action. It's heinous. I looked it up. It's pronounced heinous. And there is no mischievous. It's only mischievous. There's no possible way you can get mischievous out of it's just plain wrong. Text 10. At the time of dissolution, Lord Shiva's hair is scattered, and he pierces the rulers of the different directions with his trident. He laughs and dances proudly, scattering their hands like flags as thunder scatters the clouds all over the world. Purport. Prasuti, who appreciated the power and strength of her son-in-law, Lord Shiva, is describing what he does at the time of dissolution. This description indicates that the strength of Lord Shiva is so great that Daksha's power could not be set in comparison to it. At the time of dissolution, Lord Shiva, with his trident in hand, dances over the rulers of the different planets, and his hair is scattered, just as the clouds are scattered all over all directions, in order to plunge the different planets into incessant torrents of rain. In the last phase of dissolution, all the planets become inundated with water, and that inundation is caused by the dancing of Lord Shiva. This dance is called the Pralaya dance, or dance of dissolution. Prasuti could understand that the dangers ahead resulted not only from Daksha's neglecting her daughter, but also because of his neglecting the prestige and honor of Lord Shiva. Just see, from one little incident, all this is taking place. Isn't that amazing? It's quite amazing. The gigantic black man bared his fearful teeth. Fearful teeth. By the movements of his brows, he scattered the luminaries all over the sky, and he covered them with his strong, piercing effulgence. Because of the misbehavior of Daksha, Even Lord Brahma, Daksha's father, could not have been saved from the great exhibition of anger. While everyone was talking amongst themselves, Daksha saw dangerous omens from all sides, from the earth and from the sky. In this verse, Daksha has been described as Mahatma. The word Mahatma has been commented upon by different commentators in various manners. Veera Raghava Acharya has indicated that this word Mahatma means steady in heart. That is to say that Daksha was so strong-hearted that even when his beloved daughter was prepared to lay down her life, he was steady and unshaken. But in spite of his being so strong-hearted, he was perturbed when he saw the various disturbances created by the gigantic black demon. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks in this connection that even if one is called Mahatma, a great soul, unless he exhibits the symptoms of a Mahatma, he should be considered a Duratma, or a degraded soul. In Bhagavad Gita, the word Mahatma describes the pure devotee of the Lord. Mahatmanas tumam partha daivim prakritim ashrita, Bhagavad Gita 9:13. A Mahatma is always under the guidance of the internal energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus, how could such a misbehaved person as Daksha be a Mahatma? A Mahatma is supposed to have all the good qualities of the demigods, and thus Daksha, lacking those qualities, could not be called a Mahatma. He should instead be called a Duratma, a degraded soul. The word Mahatma to describe the qualifications of Daksha is used sarcastically. My dear Vidura, all the followers of Shiva, Lord Shiva, surrounded the arena of sacrifice. They were of short stature and were equipped with various kinds of weapons. Their bodies appeared to be like those of sharks, blackish and yellowish. They ran all around the sacrificial arena and thus began to create disturbances. Some of the soldiers pulled down the pillars which were supporting the pandal of sacrifice. Some of them entered the female quarters. Some of them began destroying the sacrificial arena, and some of them entered the kitchen and the residential quarters. They broke all the pots made for use in sacrifice, and some of them began to extinguish the sacrificial fire. Some tore down the boundary line of the sacrificial arena, and some passed urine on the arena. Some blocked the way of the fleeing sages, some threatened the women assembled there, and some arrested the demigods who were fleeing the pandal. Maniman, one of the followers of Lord Shiva, arrested Bhrigu, and Virabhadra, the black demon, arrested Prajapati Daksha. Another follower, who was named Chandesh, arrested Pusha. Nandishwar arrested the demigod Bhaga. There was a continuous shower of stones, and all the priests and other members assembled at the sacrifice were put into immense misery. For fear of their lives, they dispersed in different directions. Virabhadra shaved off the mustache of Bhrigu, who was offering the sacrificial oblations, with his hands in the fire. Virabhadra immediately caught Bhaga, who had been moving his eyebrows during the cursing of Lord Shiva by Bhrigu, and out of great anger thrust him to the ground and forcibly put out his eyes. Just as Baladev had knocked out the teeth of Dantavakra, the king of Kalinga, during the gambling match at the marriage ceremony of Aniruddha, Virabhadra knocked out the teeth of both Daksha, who had shown them while cursing Lord Shiva, and Pusha, who, by smiling sympathetically, had also shown his teeth. Never show your teeth. Purport. Here a reference is made to the marriage of Aniruddha, a grandson of Lord Krishna's. He kidnapped the daughter of Dantavakra, and thereafter he was arrested. Just as he was to be punished for the kidnapping, the soldiers from Dwarka, headed by Balaram, arrived, and a fight ensued amongst the Kshatriyas. This sort of fight was very common, especially during marriage ceremonies, when everyone was in a challenging spirit. In that challenging spirit, a fight was sure to occur, and in such fights, there was commonly killing and misfortune. After finishing such fighting, the parties would come to a compromise, and everything would be settled. This Daksha Yajna was similar to such events. All of them, Daksha and the demigods Bhaga and Pusha and Bhrigu Muni, were punished by the soldiers of Lord Shiva, but later everything would come to a peaceful end. So this spirit of fighting between one another was not exactly inimical. But because everyone was so powerful and wanted to show his strength by Vedic mantra or mystic power, all these fighting skills were very elaborately exhibited by the different parties of the Daksha Yajna. Now, we just have a few minutes left, so we're going to take a few reflections. Yes.
Well, just in relation to when Sati gave up her body, she was saying how because she's related to Daksha, she considered her body, impure. So I was thinking just because of association, how we mentioned about Kritavarma and Akrura. That was a different type of association, but similar. I guess you could say it's similar in the sense of being careful who we associate with.
What about Akrura?
Akrura, he had because of his was different. Well, I mentioned when the Shamantaka jewel.
Oh yeah, I mentioned Kritavarma.
Kritavarma, yeah.
He was in the Bhoja dynasty.
Akrura got cursed by the gopis, right? Because. Yeah.
I think one of the argument that Parvati gave that that all the opulence are not manifested externally to Daksha. I remember that even in the Kapil in Dehuti Samvad, that where Kapil Dev says that in the Lord continued, my dear mother, devotee who receives such transcendental opulences are never bereft of them. Neither weapons nor the change of time can destroy such opulences. Because the devotee accept me as their friend, their relatives, their son, preceptor, benefactor, and supreme deity, they cannot be deprived of their possessions at any time.
In relation to?
Parvati was saying that like Lord Shiva has lot of opulence, but you can't see that opulence. He has the opulence of both renunciation as well as the second things he told, and he can be renounced as well as he can forgot the second, and he told both the extreme, how he has the opulence, but you can't see that opulence that he is possessing.
Right. Nice. Yes.
I was just reflecting on the power of the Brahmins and the power of the curses and how much tejas they had to produce all those different demoniac forces, etc., etc. And yet we've heard over and over and over and over and over again how powerful the chanting of Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra is. And yet, so far that potency still hasn't fully manifested itself in all of our chanting, because we're so contaminated, but yet it's even more powerful than all of those exalted personalities producing demoniac people and forces and everything just by chanting a mantra. But the mantra that we have is even more powerful than that. When, oh when, will the potency arise in the heart and cleanse the heart?
One thing is, I was reading in the Yoga Sutras about mystic powers, and one of the ways that one develops this power to say something that then becomes manifest is by always telling the truth. One who becomes avowedly truthful, then, first of all, one of the mystic powers is he's believed everywhere. It almost sounds like one follows the other, but he's indicating there's a kind of a mystic power. And there's a way in which such a person then develops the power from speech to be able to manifest things and so forth. Well, another way to look at it is that although they're dealing with Brahma Tejas it's kind of in a superficial way, because in this context, they're destroying things. And it's always easier to blow stuff up than it is to create something. And through the chanting of Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra, there are people who are dead spiritually and then they come alive. I mean, if you wanted to argue it the other way, you could say, like, it is manifesting because Prabhupada came to the park, he chanted the mantra, and then all of a sudden, now there's tens of thousands of temples all over the world. Where'd that come from? That's kind of hard to do. Even Brahma Tejas can't do that. They could blow up a few places, but that's another. But I know what you mean too. There's another way. The quality of the chanting, Prabhupada says, has to be. Your point's well taken on. Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I was noticing that as you mentioned about the criticism, we need to be very careful. Even such criticism as if it's happening in a scenario where there are two sides, even being present there, you will pay the price. So many demigods were just there, maybe they were just loyal to a party. But if it is something openly happening in that one, they also paid the price, which is pretty heavy one, they're killed or mustache burned or something like that.
Vrindavan Das Thakur says in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, never take sides. Never take sides with great souls, because they'll argue, and if you take sides, then you'll be implicated in it. Just stay out of it. Yes, Prabhu. Dhirotata.
Hare Krishna. So just seeing that scene where they're fighting, and the Brahmanas, they've got all these beautiful columns and sacrificial fire, and then Daksha's men just come. Lord Shiva's men just come in and just wreck it all. It's like the qualities of goodness and ignorance. It's just a reminder of how it's always a battle, and that goodness doesn't always win either. Though ultimately goodness wins because it helps you realize Krishna, and Krishna always wins. So it also reminds me that in order to understand the 10th canto, to understand Krishna, we also got to go through all these different cantos where we get to know the material modes and get to know this material creation before we can understand the highest thing. So.
That's such an interesting point, and thank you. Just there's a way that they're always in the material world. The modes are always fighting for supremacy, as Krishna says in the 14th chapter of the Gita. Even in Satya Yuga, when goodness is prevalent, there can be an upsurge. Probably use that word in the connection with Hiranyakashipu, because everyone feels conditioned to a sense of happiness in the material world. Then there's an upsurge in the mode of ignorance. It's like at any time it can come and then disturb everything. I'm always struck by that and can relate to the way in which demigods suddenly found out about some character who was doing severe austerity, so much so that there was fire coming out of him. He had his hands raised in the air, standing on his tiptoes. And Brahma had to come all the way down and appease him. And that started the reign of terror, by which everybody was removed from their positions because he was so puffed up. He wanted to show how he could control everything. He took over everybody's service. He started controlling the material nature. And it all just happened in one sunny afternoon when everyone thought everything was okay. And then suddenly they get the news. Just one phone call. It's all it takes to ruin your whole life, right? And then all the peacefulness, all the guaranteed income, everything finished in 1 second. And that's that nice reminder of how the modes are always churning. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatapa, Shri Shri Radhamanan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmana Singhe, if you so desire, please Let us always take shelter of Krishna and never the material nature, knowing the difference between the two. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone who agrees with this prayer in whole or in part, please unmute and say Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Gaur Premanande. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Hari Bo. Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Hari Bo. Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Panchakopadrisha Kripasnaveva Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nantagori Vaishnaviki Jai. Thank you, everybody. We'll start up again at 4 o'clock. 4 p.m. Is that right? Yes. See you at 4 p.m. Now you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.